When legends collide, Ali versus Mike Tyson. In this fantasy matchup that people have been kind of thinking about for a long time, I'm going to kind of go over some film study for you guys and kind of show you what I see and who I think is going to win or would win if they were to fight. Now, first off, I want to say that Mike Tyson and Ali were obviously different in the ring, but also very, very different outside the ring. And I want to make sure that nothing that I say is misconstrued about his character. I think that Ali is one of the most bravest and influential people to ever live, and I have a lot of respect for him as his character as a person. Very, very, very few people could ever manage to do the things that he did outside the ring. So, with that said, we're going to take a look at some of these Muhammad Ali highlights as he goes through his career in this video. Kind of just pounds on some people. Pretty funny showboating here, sure. Decent head movement, getting away from the right hand there. And I want to highlight that real quick. It was not always super easy to hit Muhammad Ali with the right hand, and this is a very important idea. We've noticed this move here, this slipping to the lead foot, very similarly to how Floyd Mayweather does it. A very, very similar tactic, but pretty decent head movement. Now he's getting his head a little bit off this way. But definitely a tactic that he was very good at, and being able to read his opponent's movement pretty well with the, I'll say, the shoulder feint timing, right? Now, Ali liked to be on his toes. He liked to move. He had quick hands, and he could sit down at any point, right? If you're chasing him, and then all of a sudden he controls a space here and sits down into a punch, he could let off a combination. But it took a lot of energy, not only to move your hands at this pace, but to move your feet at this pace. And then to break rhythm into a 1-2 that's going to be fast enough to hit somebody who's already used to chasing you at this speed. So one of the things that Muhammad Ali had in his career is I think that he would try to use things like the rope-a-dope a little too often. There were too many times in his career where he might sit on the line with somebody, and again, beautiful defense of the right hand here. I mean, he almost gets kind of hit, but the idea is it was very difficult, I think, throughout his career to hit him with a lot of clean right hands, and it allowed him to be very successful in the ring, especially because most people are right-handed. Now, if we take a look at a little bit of Iron Mike Tyson's, and we're going to take a look at some very specific clips as well. I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of who these fighters were before we get into the real film study. But Mike Tyson, very explosive, wants to get on the line with you and throw lots and lots of punches. He's got, as they called him when he was younger, Kid Dynamite, right? Dynamite in both hands. Beautiful shots, beautiful penduluming right hook into this shot. Just an amazing, amazing athlete. Now, the only thing that kind of stood in Mike Tyson's way was that he fought in the heavyweight division, and he was only 5'10". Now, a lot of people think that Mike Tyson was a pretty big guy, but Mike Tyson was, I guess if your average guy is 6 foot, Mike Tyson was below average, even just for regular guys. Now I'm 5'6", so I'm super below average. But the idea that Mike Tyson at only 5'10" carried this massive amount of size with him that people just, even me myself, I thought he was a very, very big dude. Beautiful leaping left hook here, and again, this is one of the most important punches in Mike Tyson's arsenal. Again, catching him multiple times here. Able to use this leaping left hook here, boom, and then sit down, roll under the line, and use another one. Multiple consecutive leaping left hooks in boxing at a speed and a pace at which boxing had never seen before. Just an absolute incredible athlete. But Mike Tyson, yes, he was a heavyweight, but he was not a heavyweight. If Mike Tyson had fought in any other weight class, if he had gotten the chance to become a welterweight or fight in the middleweight division, I think very, very, very likely there was no one in boxing history that would be able to compete with what he could have achieved. I don't think that anybody at 160 pounds would have been able to compete with his athleticism. I mean, he's already so fast at 200, 220, 230 pounds. So the idea that Mike Tyson wasn't a great heavyweight or A, B, C, or D, or a great fighter, like, not to throw shade, but someone like Teddy Atlas, who I think knows almost nothing about boxing or how to really coach boxing. could say something so absurd about someone who fought routinely against people who are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and was able to annihilate them. So anyway, after we got a look at these fighters, we're going to take a look at some of the problems that uh, sometimes they had. But first, we're going to take a look at some very interesting clips. Now, Customato was Mike Tyson's coach, and I believe he was also Floyd Patterson's coach. And Floyd Patterson fought a very similar style to Mike Tyson. Obviously, nobody remembers him as being the Mike Tyson of his era, right? But so he's not as fast or explosive, but a very solid and competent fighter. And we can see him trying to keep up with that rhythm that Ali had here. And here's that leaping left hook. I think he even gets a piece of him with this one here. Oh, can barely see it. I'm not sure if he lands it, but I don't think it's Mike Tyson's left hook, right? Now, the reason that we want to take a look at this is because they were coached by the same guy, and Mike Ali actually fought this guy twice and was able to beat him both times. I think stoppages in both fights. So I think it gives us a pretty good comparison for how the fight is going to look. And as we can see, one thing that's really interesting about Ali is, again, a lot of straight punches. But in spite of the slipping head movement that we saw in the beginning clip, where he's getting away from the right hands, there's not a lot of head movement when he punches. Notice how his head gets kind of stuck on the line, and he's throwing 1, 2, 3, right? Or a little jab there as Patterson is kind of trying to weave under the line here. Now, being the tool that right here, the jab getting parried, and then Ali kind of eating this shot. I don't want to say eating it, but I want you to pay attention to the idea that Ali's defense here is the same. Okay, he's throwing that shot and he's slipping to this side as if to get away from a right hand. Okay, which means that this style of defense for him was very consistent, but as we can see, it doesn't actually work against the left hand, right? The left hook, as it puts you kind of in that same position. Now again, very difficult to hit with the 1-2s, right? Hit with the right hand. But Ali's not really got an active guard here, and starting to get caught to the body. His jab starting to get parried more and more by Mr. Patterson here in some of these clips, and starting to land some punches, right? Now, Ali's main defense here in this fight, a little bit of head movement, but his main defense is punching, okay? He's got a little bit of footwork, but most of the way that he controls the space between him and his opponent here is by throwing 1-2s at him. Now, catching him here with a 2, right? Boom, boom, and then getting caught with the left hook again. Again, a very similar arc in movement in which he's trying to slip the right hand, right? Very consistently putting himself in that position, and I think it's a very, very dangerous position for him. Now again, not a lot of active guard from Ali, right? He's coming forward, he's getting his way to the front foot here, and looking to walk into his stepping jab, right? Trying to find an opening at which his opponent's head is going to be on the line. Mostly looking to kind of, I'd say, take advantage of the idea that he's bigger than his opponent. Now, once the Patterson here gets across the line, right, because Ali can't throw punches the whole time, right? That's why you have to feint. That's why you have to probe against your opponents, is because it takes a lot of energy to do everything else. When you throw a punch, if you land, you want to get some value out of it. You want to put some. So if Ali is putting power into all of the times that he controls the line, he's going to tire himself out really quickly. And even if you're not fully tired or this or that, these small moments in which you allow your opponent to gain control of the line and then mount a massive pendulum attack on you, as Patterson gets here, pendulum left hook here, and then shifts into a pendulum right hand over the top. And again, Ali very hard to hit with the right hand there. The more often that type of stuff happens, the closer your opponent's going to get to landing on you. And even though Ali thoroughly beat Patterson, and I think he beat him twice, showing signs and holes in his opportunities to stop someone who might be more explosive from annihilating him. Now again, Ali's head, when he throws punches, here's this hook, always in the same spot, right? Trying to move his head after this hook comes from Mr. Patterson here. But not really setting any of these shots up, right? Boom, boom. And we can see Patterson getting out of the way out of most of those straight punches. Ooh, and landing another decent left hook here, right? I mean, it's not really a left hook, as I think that Ali is a little bit quick enough for Patterson that he's not really able to line up his footwork and his punch technique correctly to land and get a lot of power in that. But again, I don't think he's not the athlete that Mike Tyson is. Now, we're going to take a look at a little bit of Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. Now, this is a little bit later in Ali's career, and this is, well, a little bit more representative of how I think the fight might go between him and someone like Mike Tyson. Now, I think that Ali kind of always struggled with people who could put on a lot of pressure, but I think Ali, on average, had a pretty good chin here. Now, catching him with a decent left hook here, but I want to point out, Ali not really a power puncher, right? Not getting a lot of weight into this shot, not transferring his weight to the back foot. He's kind of leaning on the front foot, and that causes him, when he gets stuck on the front foot here, to be hit by this punch here by Mr. Joe Frazier. And these are highlights from the first time they fought. And as we can see, Joe Frazier not having the most difficult time getting around Ali's lead guard, right? And again, Ali trying to punch instead of feint. And he's trying to punch instead of control his opponent, hoping that the punches are going to be enough to keep him off or to keep him honest, as we see Joe Frazier getting hit with the hook there. But again, Ali's just throwing this punch with his hand, right? There's almost no weight in it. It's not a very solid technique. We can see his hips aren't turning at all. His shoulders are still in the line here. He's kind of not hitting with a hard shot, but we can see that he's getting hit with very, very big shots here from Mr. Frazier. And again, it's very, very difficult to throw your punches like this throughout the entire fight if that's the only way that you can control your opponent. Now, I know that Ali would have sometimes some foot feints and stuff, but one of the problems is that Mike Tyson, and we're going to take a look at him, obviously, Mike Tyson was one of the best ever to get around the jab. He had some of the best boxing craft of all time, and again, this leaping left hook here, constantly hitting Ali here. Very few people in the history of boxing had as good a craft at getting around the defense, at fighting their opponent's jab as Mike Tyson. And that meant that the better he was at fighting against the jab, the more opportunity he had when the jab came to get on the inside. And since Ali primarily controlled the space between him and his opponent with the jab, that meant that there were a lot of opportunities for Mike Tyson or someone similar to slip around it, like as we see Mr. Joe Frazier doing. Now, this was another habit that Ali had, and I think why it would make it very, very difficult for him to beat someone like Mike Tyson is because when he runs out of energy, he gets hit with a couple of punches, and both of these ideas are inevitable in a fight, especially with the way that Ali liked to stay on the front foot. He liked to be on the balls of his feet, jumping around, right, in and out, and then also controlling the space with all of his punches. Again, it's very, very difficult. Maybe he could do it for 2 minutes of the round, but that 1 minute that he might need to rest, broken up over a series of parts, right? Oh, I need 15 seconds here, 15 seconds here, 15 seconds here. I think would give Mike Tyson maybe enough time to find opportunities to land big, big, big punches when he's on the ropes. As we can see here, well, let's take a look at that Mike Tyson clip. I think there was a really great scene there where he was doing that too. See, getting his opponents on the ropes, and there are just so many opportunities there for him to find punches. Beautifully getting around the jab here, actually the right hand there, and beautiful technique there. I know this guy's a nobody, but slipping this way, getting to the front foot, and then amazing left hook here. But again, I think Ali struggled with fighters who could get to the inside on him, and who could get around his jab. And more notably, his head being stuck on the line here, as we see with all these punches. a little bit of holding, and again, Mike Tyson could find angles here. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the kind of fighter, real quick, that would beat Mike Tyson. Okay? So, here we have James Buster Douglas, and he's very, very famously known for beating Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson's first loss, and very, very disappointing loss for Mike Tyson, and a very, very excellent win for James Buster Douglas. Now, nobody, no offense to James Buster Douglas, nobody thinks that Buster Douglas is even half as good as Muhammad Ali. Most people probably in boxing don't even know who he is. But we're going to take a look at the idea that Mike Tyson struggled to fight people who would stand and fight with him. Now, it's a very interesting idea because I do think that this is part of the strategy that Ali would like to take as well, because he liked to stand in front of his opponents and throw punches at him, right? As we can see here, trying to the very similar style, but still getting hit with the left hook here. But Buster Douglas finding opportunities to land punches on the inside and really fighting with Mike Tyson. And this is really interesting because, again, this is exactly how Muhammad Ali liked to fight. It's not a lot of feinting and probing. It's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of controlling the space with punches and timing. Excellent hook here. Now, the only difference is, while I think that Ali was obviously a better fighter than Buster Douglas on average, Buster Douglas's punch technique here in these clips, moving his head, getting his head off the line, makes it more difficult for someone like Mike Tyson to set his footwork up against him, because Mike Tyson is so much smaller than Buster Douglas. Again, one of the worst parts about Mike Tyson fighting in the heavyweight division is that he didn't ever fight anyone who was his size. And this gave the larger opponent, the taller opponent, a lot of advantages. However, most people were not even close to the level of athlete that they need to be to take advantage of those things against someone like Mike Tyson. But Buster Douglas here, decent head movement, decent control here, getting his head off the line and being able to cross the line with the right hand, come back off the line with the left hook. And this motion here, just a very, very simple. One, his head's in one position. Boom. Two, his head's in another position. And then being able to throw the hook here. Three, his head is in a new position. Meant that Mike Tyson had to continually be repositioning his own head, his own feet, and the rest of his own body mechanics to land powerful strikes against Buster Douglas. This is one of the reasons why Douglas had so much success, and why I think that someone like Mike Ali would not have success against Mike Tyson. Because Ali, again, he didn't really move his head, so his head was pretty easy to find. And I think that might mean that Mike Tyson would be able to find him with those crazy, really good left hooks much, much, much more often. Now, another really interesting thing about this is Mike Tyson is a left-handed fighter. He's a left-handed fighter that fought orthodox, and it's one of the reasons why his left hook was such a big and powerful weapon for him. And one of the reasons, again, why I think that on average, while Ali had a weakness to the left hook and was very good usually at getting around the right hand, I'm not even sure that... So another one of those problems about getting your weight stuck on the front foot, right? The uppercut, and again, that a punch that could very well hurt Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali as well. But again, Buster Douglas really sat in there and fought with Mike Tyson and had decent power here. I don't think on average he had a lot of power, but again, Mike Tyson's only 5'10", right? So being able to move his head and cross the line not only gave him enough space to fight Mike Tyson, right? Because his head is constantly moving, constantly shifting spaces. It gave him a lot of extra power in his punches. And again, I don't think that... Beautiful. Right hand to the front foot, then the left hook. And then the left hook gets his head off the line of that uppercut. Again, that's something that Ali didn't really have in his fights, was the head movement while he punched. All his punching was what I call on my channel Wing Chun. No weight transition behind it, just a strike. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at another clip of another fighter who also would like to stand and fight with Mike Tyson. Okay. Now, Evander Holyfield has 2 wins over Mike Tyson in some of the most weirdest and most bizarre fights ever. I want to point out, immediately timing him on the jab right there, catching him on the inside. As Mike Tyson, again, no matter who he fought, he was just one of the best at fighting against his opponent's jab, finding their timing, and getting to the inside. Just very, very few people could stop him from getting to the inside. Actually, I want to say one person was the only person to be able to do that, and that was Lennox Lewis, as everyone else just chose to fight him there. And again, getting under the jab here, and even though Holyfield landing a punch, he's getting under this jab and then catching him with the body shot, and then getting under the next counter. Just an absolute monster of a fighter, Mr. Tyson here. Even though this is just very, very deep in his career. And after a decent layoff, like similarly to Ali had, right? Obviously for very different reasons. No offense, Tyson. But the types of fighters, again, that had problems, or that Mike Tyson had problems with, were ones that could stand and fight with him. Ones where his physical prowess wasn't as valuable because, not to say that, he only won because he was such a great athlete. No. Well, number one, you have to be a very intelligent fighter to fight as well as Mike Tyson. You have to be in incredible shape. You have to work really hard. But what did they say? A great small man loses to a good big man, right? Again, at some point, the value that you are able to extract out of your superior athleticism becomes much smaller, especially as you fight someone who's nearly as good of an athlete as you are. And Evander Holyfield, very, very talented athlete, lifelong fighter, Olympian, just incredible fighter, made it very, very difficult for Mike Tyson to beat him because, if you don't have the same, I don't want to say the same pop in your punches, but if you're not getting the same value out of it because your opponent's so much bigger than you, right? Your opponent's still going to be getting that same value out of theirs. Or more because they're bigger than you, right? So similar to like Pacquiao versus Ugas. Pacquiao is obviously a much better fighter than Yordenis Ugas, no offense Ugas, but the stretch from his technique and his size was just too much, right? And eventually, when you stop fighting people your size and you move up and do this, you're going to find someone who can have at least a little bit of a style or a little bit of, and here we see Evander Holyfield doing a good job of controlling Mike Tyson's neck, stopping him from being effective on the inside, right? And still able to land punches himself. Now, I think Mike Tyson complained about headbutts in this fight, and I do think that big head right there, just smashed into Mike Tyson's face, right? Here he goes, down, up, boom, and hits him in the head. But I think that was a common problem in Evander Holyfield's career. Oh, they just bang heads again. And then there's Evander Holyfield rubbing his head into Mike Tyson's head, right? And we can see posturally who has control of their body, right? As Tyson's head being stuck this way, Evander Holyfield's using his weight to drive into Mike Tyson's core, right? Tiring and weakening him. I know it sounds like a little bit of thing, but when you're wrestling with guys this big, right? This is a lot of weight. And again, Mike Tyson's not the biggest guy, Again, 5'10". I don't know how big Evander Holyfield is, but that dude's a tank, man. He's so damn big. But again, the only kinds of people to really trouble Mike Tyson were fighters that would try to fight him on the inside and that could, I don't want to say compete with his size, but could eat a punch. No, that's a bad way to say it too. Were fighters that wanted to fight him on the inside, that could stress his technique and catch him coming in. And that was a big part of it as well, is being able to catch him on the way in so that you could start being the one to land the first punch and then make Mike Tyson catch up in the engagement. And again, you had to be a pretty good boxer to be able to do that. You had to use feints, you had to use probes, you had to understand how to move your head and get your head off the line so that Mike Tyson wouldn't always be on the line with you And again, not something I think that Muhammad Ali could do very well. Now we're going to take a look at one more clip with Muhammad Ali and his fight with Ken Norton, and how Ken Norton was able to use very similar strategy. Now, again, Ken Norton is a little bit bigger than Mike Tyson, obviously, but very, very similar style, right? Trying to get around the jab and looking for these big leaping hooks here, right? And again, with Ali's defense, the way that he would keep his head in a very similar spot, and then he would only like to slip this way as he circled to the left, it made him prone to being hit by this punch quite a bit. And I think that this was a consistently bad habit that Ali had, that made it very, very difficult for him to be able to get away from the left hook. Now, very, very common feint for someone who doesn't have head movement is to just bring their hands out here like this. There's an interesting video on my channel with a guy who one of my boxing students fought, who was much younger, much bigger than him, and had nowhere near the boxing skill. And he was trying to feint him like this, like a bird. Very, very interesting idea to feint that way. But as we can see, not a lot of feinting coming from Ali here, and he's having a very difficult time controlling the space between him and Ken Norton. And Ken Norton having a great time slipping to the front foot, leaping left hook, getting to the inside, body shot, or head shot. Very, very similar combination that Mike Tyson would throw, right? Right hand to the body, right uppercut. Being very, very effective here. Right hand over the top. And again, at some point, it just becomes very difficult to continue controlling the space with punches and control the space with your footwork, sliding off the line constantly. And again, while I do think that Ali would try to fight sometimes on the inside with Mike Tyson, I think that there are just too many opportunities that, once the guard is penetrated, that he has to shell up and has to reset. Similarly to here, yeah, some yikes stuff, I'll say. But again, a lot of the footwork from Ali caused him to be very worn out prematurely in his fights, and it's kind of like if he were to spend 2 minutes of every round jumping rope in front of his opponent, but his opponent was still able to slip his punches and punch him in the face. Now, we're going to take a look at another clip here of Ali with Customato here, and Customato kind of slap boxing with Ali, and I want to point out that landing a punch here, getting under here, and then Ali very, very predictably, as we saw that motion there, coming in with his rear hand forward and then trying to shuffle forward and catch him with the jab here. He does the same thing here, right? And then tries to find the left here. And now he's going to do the same thing, bringing his right shoulder forward, and now he shuffles forward with his weight forward. And Customato timing him stepping forward on that jab. Again, something that Ali liked to do a lot, stepping with his punches, but not because he was stepping with his punches, but because he stepped with almost everything that he was doing, right? Trying to float like a butterfly with that theory and that idea. And even as an old man, we have Customato being able to time Ali on his way in with his jab. And again, I think that Mike Tyson had some of the best jab craft of all time. So I don't think that Ali's jab would be a factor in the fight. I think that it would be a liability, allowing Mike Tyson to close the distance, as I don't think that Ali had the power in his right hand to really hurt someone like Mike Tyson. And again, Mike Tyson's or Ali's craft or Ali's style, I think, as we look at back here, he was always prone to getting hit by big left hooks, right? This is a clip very early in his career where he was knocked down by a journeyman, someone on his way up the ladder. And this guy was getting around Ali's jab here and landing big leaping pendulum left hooks, timing him. And again, Ali's head always in the same spot, right? Boom, and getting caught with this shot and dropped. And then again, another one of those interesting moments where Ali gets dropped in his career, a right hand over the top, because his jab is easy to time here. but getting caught on the inside here, throwing a lot of punches and then getting caught with a left hook and then going down. Again, something that I think that would be very common, especially if Ali, who tried to fight on the inside or tried to throw his punches, let his hands go against someone like Mike Tyson on the inside, someone who can't move his head, right? Again, we saw with Evander Holyfield having manual control over Mike Tyson's head, preventing him from crossing the line, stopping him from being as dangerous, while also still being able to land punches. And then Buster Douglas, because of his superior size, able to cross his head over and over Mike Tyson's line, making it very difficult for him to actually set his punches up, because he doesn't, number one, doesn't know where, at what rhythm or timing or space Buster Douglas is going to be moving his head, but can't control him with his own feints and probes as he's being stuck, kept on the outside, as Buster Douglas is the one throwing punches to control. But being able to cross the line and move his head gave him a lot of safety, stopping Mike Tyson from being able to always hit him. Now, Mike Tyson was still hitting that guy quite a bit, but there were a lot of opportunities on the inside there that allowed Buster Douglas to find more punches and more clever punches that I don't think that Ali would enjoy similarly. So my prediction is Mike Tyson, and I think that he would get this done by the third round. And it might not be a knockout, as Ali had an incredible chin. He's been in a lot of incredible fights. Might be stopped in the corner, but I don't think that Muhammad Ali would last 3 rounds with Mike Tyson. I think you want to say a different time or a different era, but I want to say just a different animal. Now, I do want to point out that I do think that Ali did pretty well in his rematches. So, who knows? Maybe if they had a rematch, Ali could come out on top, but we would have to see what the first fight wound up looking like to see what areas Ali could improve in and how long he actually survived. Because, again, Ali did do very well in his rematches, I believe. Even stopping Patterson even sooner, twilight of his career, later in Ali's career as well, but nonetheless, doing better and better. Anyway, if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested in learning boxing, I do boxing coaching. I have a number of boxing programs for sale. If you want to check them out, the links are in the description. And we're going to be watching some more Muhammad Ali and some more Mike Tyson on Patreon this week. If you guys are interested, it's $10 to sign up, $10 a month. And yeah, if you'd like more content like this, we'll be doing a video series like this. I think about twice a month we're going to be doing a video on When Legends Collide. And let me know who you guys want to see next.